Good morning. Welcome back. So, in the test discussions, today we will discuss test number 3, paper 1B. Okay. Yesterday we have covered two tests, test number 1 and test number 2. These are the questions. Section A, question number 1, 5 questions, subsections, doctrine of basic structure, Dalit perspective, discuss the dominant external and internal influences in the framing of Indian constitution. In what ways do pressure groups exert influence in the Indian politics? Explain the concept of judicial activism. Critically analyze the discretionary powers granted to the governor by the Indian constitution. 2A. B. Discuss the duties and powers of the CAG. Then 2C. Discuss asymmetrical federation or federalism in India. 3A. Explain the phenomenon of ethnic politics in India in recent times or recent past. Explain the basic assumption of Gandhian planning and discuss whether it would help India to achieve economic prosperity. 3C, explain the structure and functions of the National Commission for Minorities. Question number 4A, indicate the issues of tensions and conflicts in the relationship between center and the states in India. How best could they be reconciled? 20 marker. How does the Supreme Court of India function as the custodian of the Constitution and protector of the rights of the citizens? Question 4B. Question 4C, examine the significance of the directive principles of state policy in achieving the goal of socio-economic justice. Section B, nature of the fundamental duties enshrined in the Indian Constitution. Comment 10 mark. 5B, the composition of Constituent Assembly, significance of the civil disobedience movement. Assess the effectiveness of NHRC in redressing grievances pertaining to human rights violation in India. Examine the Parliament's powers to amend the Constitution of India. Question 6A. What are the political philosophies enshrined in the Indian Constitution? How far are they mutually reconcilable? Give reasons for your arguments. 6B. To what extent has 73rd and 74th amendments of the Indian Constitution enhanced women's empowerment? 6C. Make an assessment of the role of EC, Election Commission of India, in the conduct of free and fair elections. 7A. The role of Indian Prime Ministers in the federal system was always controversial. This is the statement. Do you agree with this statement? Give reasons for your answer with apt examples. 7B. Critically examine the impact of the land reforms on the agrarian transformation, land reforms, revolution, etc., Green Revolution, 15 marker. 7C. In what ways do civil liberties and human rights movements influence the working of Indian democracy? Give your answer with suitable examples. And last question, question number 8. What are the important determinants of electoral behavior in India? Critically discuss the role of caste as a determinant of voting behavior, 20 marker. 8B. Examine the case for formation of small states in India. And last, account for the emergence of regional political parties in India. So all these questions we are going to discuss in next 2 hours. Okay. So we'll start from question number 1. Compulsory, the doctrine of basic structure of Indian Constitution. Comment. Okay. Fine. So we'll start. Question number 1. The doctrine of basic structure of the Indian Constitution. Comment. Okay. So this topic has been in the news for various reasons. Okay. Previous former vice president, he was having some issues with basic structure. He gave various statements on that basic structure doctrine, etc. So you can start with introduction, basic structure doctrine. We all know that 1973 judgment, Keshwananda Bharati case, KBC. Okay. 7-6 majority. That was famous, largest bench of the Supreme Court. In this context, against the backdrop of executive increasing role of executive in the context of 24th and 25th Constitutional Amendment Acts of 1971, the Supreme Court exerted itself and said that there are certain basic structure in the Constitution which the parliament cannot amend. Okay, so that is basic structure doctrine judgment Keshwananda Bharati case. And later on, many times Supreme Court has added various provisions as basic structure, like secularism, judicial review, of course, that is part of basic structure, federation, uh, rule of law, parliamentary democracy, etc. etc. So this is context. What was the context? 24th and 25th, and that evolution we all know that. The tussle between judiciary and the executive. Okay, day one itself, that is 1970, 1951 itself, and that culmination, basic structure doctrine, that is 1973. So what is issue right now? There are two views, or we can say different aspects of this basic structure. There are some people who believe that this is undemocratic, against the constitution, basic structure itself. Why? Because in the original constitution there is no mention of this BST, basic structure doctrine. And you have given, that is Supreme Court has given this doctrine very thin majority, 7:6. Okay, so you can mention Jagdeep Dhankar, Vice President former. Okay, so these people, they are saying that even Arun Jaitley, late Arun Jaitley, was also against this particular basic structure doctrine. We all know that. But there are other also, like Upendra Bakshi, Professor Upendra Bakshi. According to Upendra Bakshi, professor, he has written one article, 50 years of basic structure doctrine, in the Indian Express. In that article, Upendra Bakshi argued that without basic structure, we might be having constitution without constitutionalism. Without constitutionalism. This is the comment of Upendra Bakshi on the basic structure. Okay, so basic structure doctrine or basic structures are required to maintain constitutionalism. Okay, merely having constitution is not going to serve the purpose. We should have constitutionalism, and basic structure has provided that, according to Upendra Bakshi. Then you can mention Jia Modi, 10 famous judgments of the Supreme Court, and basic structure save the democracy, Indian democracy. It is judicial innovation, and it has served the purpose. So that is basic structure. But in the comments you can say that judiciary needs to be reformed because there are certain issues in the judiciary. We all know that. You can mention P.B. Mehta, Pratap Bhanu Mehta. Okay, transparency and all that in the appointment, in the transfer of cases and etc. Recently, judiciary has been criticized because of various reasons. Okay, so what is required? Judiciary also needs to be reformed. Okay, in that context, 99th Constitutional Amendment Act and all that. Okay, which was judiciary declared unconstitutional. Thus, this is about basic structure doctrine. Comment. Understood? Any doubts? Okay, fine. So next question. Dalit perspective on Indian national movement, very easy, okay, very straightforward. Dalit perspective, we all know that there are different perspectives on the Indian national movement. Dalit perspective, liberal perspective, socialist perspective, Marxist perspective, radical humanist perspective. In that Dalit perspective, you can directly start with Dalit perspective, straight away, 10 marker. Don't waste time. Dalit perspective. Okay, subaltern perspective you can mention in the context of Indian national movement. Introduced with that, and scholars, B.R. Ambedkar, of course. Second, Jyotiba Phule, Ramaswamy Naikar, Periyar. So all these people you can mention in the Dalit perspective. You can use Ambedkar to criticize mainstream Indian national movement that is led by Indian National Congress. Okay, it was against the, not directly against, but Dalit perspective tried to add subaltern perspective in the Indian national movement. Ambedkar tried to add separate electorates, though we had Pune Pact. Okay. He criticized Gandhi and Indian National Congress. He wanted to have radical solutions for the abolition or removal of untouchability. Merely having Harijans and etc. will not serve the purpose according to Ambedkar. So this is Dalit perspective. No single perspective can address or the uh, describe the Indian national movement. We need different perspective. That can be your conclusion. Everywhere you can add that kind of conclusion in the context of perspectives on Indian national movement. Okay, these three people should be there in your answer. Next question. Discuss the dominant external and internal influences in the framing of the Indian Constitution. Question is asking two parameters, external as well as internal influences in the framing of the Indian Constitution. Okay, so you can start with Constituent Assembly, framing of Indian Constitution, Constituent Assembly, Cabinet Mission Plan and etc. in the introduction 1946. Okay, 389 members, then 299 members post independence, etc. Partly represented by the uh, princely states and etc. All those points you can mention in the introduction, or you can mention that there are different influences on the making of Indian Constitution. We all know that internal, external. In the internal, you should mention Nehru Report, 1928, Motilal Nehru Report. It also influenced the making of Indian Constitution. We all know that many provisions from the Nehru Report were taken, secularism and etc. Then of course, constitutional legacy, legal constitutional legacy of the British Raj, 1861 or 1858 itself, or 1861. Then Councils Act 1892, 1909, 1999, 1935. Of course, that is the uh, biggest influence, 1935. All those internal influences you can mention, and of course personalities, views of Indian nationalist, Ambedkar, Nehru, Gandhi, Maulana Azad. All those people internally influence the making of Indian Constitution. You can mention that. External, we all know that external, French Revolution, American Revolution, or Constitution of the United States, French, of course UK, parliamentary democracy, etc., Canada, Japan, all those external influences we have, that is open secret. You can take from the reference books. Okay, but internal, which is important, you can add. I conclude with Ambedkar statement. We have taken, or we have added all those principles which are suitable in the context of India. Some people have argued it is borrowed doctrine or it is borrowed document. No, it is not blind borrowing. Okay, we have taken only those principles which are suitable for the country. That is your conclusion. Next question, 1D. In what ways do pressure groups exert influence in the Indian politics? Pressure groups. Again, introduction, simple. Define pressure groups. You can mention any one scholar. We have in 2A, pressure groups, Feiner or Gabriel Almond Powell. All those you can bring in this particular answer also, no issue. Pressure groups. Okay. Or you can differentiate pressure groups from political parties. Pressure groups, they exert pressures. Their intention is not to occupy the offices or the government, not to join the government, remaining outside. Pressure political parties, they are striving to occupy the government offices or the political offices. That is the difference. You can start with that, pressure groups. So question is asking about, discuss in what ways do pressure groups exert influence in the Indian politics. So you can use that Gabriel Almond classification: associational pressure groups, institutional pressure groups, non-associational pressure groups, anomic. Associational pressure group, like we can say FICCI, etc. All those, of course, they are also prominent in our country. Institutionals, government officers, government bodies, government employees, that is institutionals. Non-associationals, like identity politics. So on this basis, you can address this question. Make the comparisons. Micro level analysis of pressure groups, working of pressure groups. And we have different pictures. Associational pressure groups are also prominent, no doubt about that, but their working style is different. making presentation to the government, asking for the tax benefits and etc. That non-visible pressure tactics. Institutionals, they are also visible sometimes, strikes and etc. Bank officers, railway officers, officials and etc. Non-association pressure groups. Here you can mention identity-based pressure groups like caste-based pressure groups across the country, like Marathas in Maharashtra, Zats, Patels in Gujarat, and here you can mention Christoph Jeffrolet also. According to him, RSS is very important pressure groups in the country. Okay. And these non-association pressure groups, farmers pressure groups, you can mention that three farms laws, etc. In that way, we see different types of pressure groups. They are having different working style. Based on that, they influence the policies of the government. Okay. So you can make micro level analysis. All those pressure groups mentioned by the structural functional approach, you can mention that. This non-association pressure group, which is feature of third world country, and India is also part of, we can say, developing part of the world. So this particular group is very prominent in our country. You can mention Christoph Jafrolet for that analysis. Fine. Okay. Next question. Explain the concept of judicial activism. Define judicial activism itself in the introduction. Okay, judiciary becomes active. It enters into the domain of other part of the government, executive and legislature, and examine its impact on the relationship between executive and judiciary in India. Okay, so judiciary versus executive, judicial activism. Judiciary becomes active and enters into the domain of executive. Okay, you can trace this debate to 1960s, 70s. As I said, what is the basis of judicial activism? Judicial review. The Constitution has provided powers to the Supreme Court to review the actions taken by the government or laws made by the Parliament. So on that basis, sometimes judiciary becomes active, and for some people, judicial activism is still judicial overreach. Very thin difference between these two. Okay, so you can add different examples where judiciary become active and give various verdicts like PIL, public interest litigation, then judiciary giving instructions to the government to form particular policy, banning some, we can say, firecrackers in Delhi and etc. So that is activism. Judiciary entering into the domain of executive. You can mention that. So here also we have different schools of thought. As I said, Justice Kajju, Markandeya Kajju, argues that judiciary must not deliver or must not make laws. The role of judiciary is to define law, interpret law. Judiciary is not there to make law. That is the work of Parliament. Judiciary is not there to make policies. That is the work of executive. So this argument you can put in the answer. Markandeya Kajju. You can mention T.B. Mehta also. Okay. According to Pratap Mehta, judiciary has no expertise. Judiciary has no experience while making policies. Policy making is the part of executive. Judiciary must not intervene in that. That is not your business. But T.B. Mehta. But again, you can add pro-judiciary people like Professor Upendra Bakshi Jhiamodi. Okay, activism is required. Why? Because sometimes there is policy paralysis in the government, which we observe during UPA too. Okay, there are various reasons because of which judiciary becomes active. If executive is paralyzed, then judiciary has to intervene. Judiciary has itself commented this particular key. If you are not doing your duty properly, we have to intervene. Okay. So even recently, Chief Justice of India, Gavai, commented like that only. He, suppose governor is not taking any action, what actually judiciary do then? Judiciary has to intervene there. Okay, that is the role of judiciary. As Nehru said that judiciary's role is not mere spectator, but judiciary should be active or should take active part in the development of India. That is actually judiciary doing through activism. As I said, but there is very thin line between activism and overreach. Okay, so sometimes judiciary overreach, and that is not good for the separation of power. Fine, understood? Next question. Critically analyze the discretionary powers granted to the governor by the Indian Constitution. Critically analyze the discretionary powers granted to the governor by the Indian Constitution. Here you have to write in the context of constitutional provisions. In the context of constitutional provisions with the provisions. Okay, so Constitution has provided discretionary powers to the governor, and those you should mention. Introduction, you can start with Article 153 constitutional provision regarding governor. Fine. Then constitutional discretion, first article, very important, Article 163. Article 163. In the Article 163, the governor has provided constitutional discretion. There shall be council of ministers headed by the chief minister to aid and advise the governor, but governor has discretion to use his or her power. So here is the crux, Article 163. Sometimes governor can use his own mind or her mind while listening to the advice given by the chief minister. So that's why there has been issues in the context of chief minister and governor. This is Article 163. First. Second, Article 356, which is very important, imposition of president's rule. In this, the governor can send report to the president and can ask for the president rules. So that is also discretion of the governor. When to send that report, why to send. Of course, there are certain norms, but we all know that the use of Article 356, at least 100 times that has been used in the last 5 years. Second, Article 200. Third, Article 200. So this is very important again, Article 200. Okay, once legislature, state legislature passes a bill, the bill goes to the governor's assent. Governor can refuse, governor can give assent, governor can return if that is not money bill, or governor can send that bill to the president. Okay, Article 200, 4 options. And this is the point right now. You can mention example of Tamil Nadu governor, N. Ravi. Okay, since 2021, he held at least 10 bills passed by the Tamil Nadu legislature. And recently, Supreme Court has said that governor must give his or her assent or at least convey to the legislature in the context of consent to the bills. Governor cannot sit on that particular seat perpetually. So this is constitutional discretion, 200. In the constitution there is no mention in which time context or in how many days governor can send that bill to the legislature for reconsideration or can give assent to the bill. And because of that, there has been issues in the federal structure. So these constitutional provisions provided enough ground for the governor to, we can say, exert its pressures on the government. Scholars, you can add Soli Sorabji in this answer. Okay, Seg or Saboteur, governor. According to Soli Sorabji, if governor is good, his or her mindset is fine, there will not be any issue as far as the office of the governor is concerned. But governor's mind is disturbed, then definitely there will be issue in the federal structure. You can mention Sarkaria Commission report, you can mention Panchi Committee report, even Dr. Manmohan Singh in 2013 around, arranged one meeting for the governors uh, at, I think, his residence. There he also gave some tips to the governors. You should maintain the federation. Duty of governor is to maintain that linkage between the center and state, not to disturb that. So that kind of approach required for the governors. Of course, constitution has given some discretionary powers to the governors in the context कि we were having partition and we wanted to have central agent or central representative at the state level. But that does not mean the governor can sabotage, governor can dismantle the elected government by the people of the state. So that is required. You can conclude with Soli Sorabji's analysis or observation on the governor's office. Clear? Any doubts? Fine. Next question. Discuss the duties and powers of the CAG, Comptroller and Auditor General of India. Very straightforward. I mean, these kind of questions also very challenging. There is no scope. Just address the question. Question is very straightforward. You can refer any reference book, M. Lakshmikant, etc. Discuss the duties and powers of the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. Just discuss that. No need to comment, no need to critically analyze, critically examine, etc. Discuss duties and powers of the CAG. That is simple question. No need to stress that. But here you should be very specific. That is the challenge. Okay. You should mention all the constitutional provisions, legal provisions related to the CAG. Okay. We will not Article 148 to Article 151 are provided for the CAG. So CAG's office is provided under Article 148. CAG is appointed by the President. You all know that. You can mention factual data also, 665 and etc. And what is the role of, or what are the duties of the CAG? 1, 2, 3, 4, enumerate that. That is very easy. You can get that. No issues. And Article 149 gives Parliament power. Parliament can provide legislative backing for the powers of the CAG. And in that context, Parliament has passed the law also, CAG Act 1971. And under this act, the CAG has been provided various powers to audit the state and the union's accounts, contingency, Consolidated Fund of India, etc. Public undertakings, CAG CAG's present its reports to the President on public undertaking, on appropriation accounts, on finance account, etc. And the President puts those reports in the Parliament, and Parliament discusses through Public Account Committee. CAG acts as a guide, philosopher, friend of PAC. So you can mention that all those powers of the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. No need to mention criticisms, etc., etc. Be specific. Address the tailwords. Address the keywords which are there in the question, which is very required. Okay. Unnecessary comments, unnecessary critical examination will hamper your marks. Okay. So please be specific, be professional as far as the addressing of the question. Okay. Next question. Question number 2C, discuss asymmetrical federalism in India. Again, very important question, asymmetrical federation. You can start with federation, meaning of federation. Question is for 15 marks. Asymmetrical federation. Introduction with federation, federalism, standard definition. Okay. Treaty, agreement, contract between the units, and constitution defines power of those units. That is federation. Question is about asymmetrical federation. Horizontal asymmetry as well as vertical asymmetry. We all know that. Here you should bring USA. Okay. USA's federation is considered as symmetrical. Why? Because all the states are having equal powers. I mean equal representation in the Senate. Then all states, they are having constitutions of their own and etc. There is no asymmetry as far as the United States is concerned. So this point you should bring. And federation is very strong. In the United States of America, we all know that strong federation. Here we have vertical asymmetry also, in the sense the union has provided more powers as compared to the states. You can mention 7th schedule and etc. 100 subjects in the union list, 61 subjects in the state list, and 52 subjects in the concurrent list. That is, we all know the facts. So that is asymmetry at the in the context of states and union. In the context of amongst the states also, there is asymmetry. We can mention 5th schedule, 6th schedule, then we can mention 4th schedule representation in Rajya Sabha for different states. There is no equality or there is no symmetry. Uttar Pradesh has 31 members, Maharashtra has 19 members, small states have only 1 member in the Rajya Sabha. So that asymmetry you can mention. We have again another category, that is union territories, that is different thing. That point also you can mention. So this is a symmetrical federation in our country. You can mention those. Okay, fine. Next question. Explain the phenomenon of ethnic politics in India in recent times. 20 marks. Okay. Ethnicity, you can start with it. Ethnic politics. Ethnicity is very broad terms, very broad. You can bring anything in ethnicity, language, culture, region, way of life, anything ethnic. But tribal politics or tribal ethnic issues, especially in the context of Northeast India, that you can bring here. Okay, so ethnic politics in the recent past, you can mention Northeast regions, Manipur, Nagaland, and some extent in other parts of the country also, based on language. Recently there has been issue in the context of Hindi, national education policy and all that. Fine. Scholars, ethnic politics, you can mention scholars like Paul Brass, Rajni Kothari, Atul Kohli, C.P. Bhamri. Okay, all those scholars you can mention. Okay. Ethnicity is prominent issue, there is no doubt about that. Still there are certain issues in the context of Northeast, unsettled business of state reorganization, some ethnic clashes. Manipur you can add, Nagaland you can add, even Assam, Meghalaya, border issue, etc. So all those points you can mention in the ethnic politics. Very standard question. You can substantiate your answers with the help of scholars. Fine. In the explanation, you can add all those theories also if you want to substantiate your answer. Son of soil theory, then masses are also ethnic, so politicians use that sentiments etc. for their politics and all that. So that aspect, different approaches to study ethnicity and use of ethnicity or ethnic politics by the politicians, that also you can add in your answer. Different approaches to study ethnic, instrumentalist approach, son of soil theory, etc. etc. Fine. Then explain the basic assumptions of Gandhian planning and discuss whether it would help India to achieve economic prosperity. Next question. Gandhian planning, Nehruian and Gandhian planning. You can compare Gandhian planning directly. You can start Gandhi and Gandhians. Gandhi, through his Hind Swaraj and other writings, articulated vision for independent India. Okay, so his vision was development of India based on morality, economic growth, and sustainability. So these three principles were the foundation stones of Gandhian planning. Sustainability should be there, morality should be there, and economic growth of course should be there. So he was against Western models of development. It will lead consumerism, materialism, and it will threaten the environment. It is not good for the globe, according to Gandhi. So he proposed this balanced approach: sustainability, economic growth, and morality. So he proposed rural economy, village republics, self-sufficient republics, cottage industries. He was not against the machines, but he preferred production by masses rather than mass production. Production by masses rather than mass production. So those points you can add. As such, Gandhi has not given any blueprint of Gandhian vision. Gandhians like S.N. Agrawal, they came up with this Gandhian plan, and we all know that Gandhian perspective. You can compare with Nehru and etc. But most of the Gandhian visions were added in the DPSP, and we still are on that to implement those visions. We started implementing Nehruvian visions post-independence, that we all know that, and we have some positives of that vision, Nehruvian vision, and negatives also. As far as Gandhian approach is concerned, whether it will lead to the prosperity or not, but that is debatable. Gandhian perspective, that is trusteeship council and etc. Bread and labor, Sarvodaya. You can add those also in Gandhian planning. But one thing is certain: we require Gandhian aspect. No matter whether you are growing at 10%, 9%, 11% in the economic sense, but we need these particular concepts: sustainability and economic morality in the consumption or materialism. And that's why even in our 12th five-year plan, Dr. Singh added those points: inclusive, sustainable, and faster economic growth. So that was the need of our. India was growing at decent rate, around 8-9%, but that growth was not inclusive. That was not sustainable. So hence Dr. Singh in the 12th five-year plan envisaged faster growth, economic growth, but sustainable and inclusive approach. So that's why we require Gandhian approach. It doesn't matter if prosperity or not that. Prosperity of course required, but that prosperity should be inclusive and sustainable. And that's why we require Gandhi. That should be your conclusion. Fine. Okay, next question. Explain the indicate. Okay, sorry. Explain the phenomena ethnic politics that we have completed. Explain the basic, that is also completed. How? Explain the structure and functions of the National Commission for Minorities. Question number 3C. Explain the structure and functions of the National Commission for Minorities. Now this is again very challenging. I mean challenging in the sense, here question is not asking about critical examination of working of National Commission for Minorities. Question is very straightforward, factual. Explain structure and function. What is the structure? You can mention those facts in the structure. That is required. National Commission for Minorities was formed in 1993 through Minority Commissions Act. That is, it is statutory body to protect the minorities. Right now we have 6 minorities that you can mention in your body. What is the composition? It has total 7 members. Okay, 1 chairperson, 1 vice chairperson, and 5 members. That is the composition of National Commission for Minorities, provided that 5 members should be from minorities, including chairperson. That point you should mention. Okay, out of all those 7 members, that is 1 plus 1 plus 5, that is 7. Out of this 7, 5 people should be from minorities, including chairperson. That is the composition of, and all these 5 members should be eminent persons, those who have knowledge in the administration and etc., or in civic affairs and all that, that you can mention in the context of these members. So this composition you should mention. As far as the functions, which is very straightforward, you can mention all the functions which are there in the National Commission for Minorities Act 1992. You can refer that act for your reference. 10, 11 functions are there. You can incorporate in your notes and you can write. No need to deliberate on that. Very straightforward, factual. But composition, you should mention very specifically. That point should be there in your answer because question is directly or specifically asking about the structure. You should mention that structure explicitly, whatever it may be. Next question. Indicate the issues of tensions and conflicts in the relationship between the center and the states in India. How best could they be reconciled? Indicate the issues of tensions and conflicts in the relationship between the center and the states in India. How best could they be reconciled? So this is technically federation issue, federation related to federalism. Center-state relations. Center-state relations. Okay. So you can, question is for 20 marks. So you can have that liberty to add some background. Okay. So once we started implementation of constitution from, we can say, 1950 to 1967, there was no issue in the relationship. Professor M.P. Singh and etc. you can add in that analysis. Professor M.P. Singh, federation and all that. Because Congress party, Congress system was there, Rajni Kothari, you can mention. Congress system, Nehru was there. So other states were not having any issue with the center. But once hegemony of Congress over or the Congress system collapsed, we had different states where other than Congress, non-Congress governments emerged. Like there was in 1967, throughout northern belt, non-Congress governments came to power. In Madras also, DMK came to power, or Telugu party came to power. So after that, there has been certain issues in the center-state relations. You can enumerate those. You should give this context, political context, in the context of center-state relations. Prominent issue was Article 356, role of governor. Because we all know that from 1970s onwards, misuse of Article 356 was often. Many times, Article 356 was used by the center. Even Nehru used that in 1950s, late 50s in Kerala. But during the time of Gandhi, Indira Gandhi, this article was used frequently. And role of governor. Already we have discussed Article 200 and Article 163 and etc. So because of that, there were tensions in the center-state relations. Second, division of power, 7th schedule. All the responsibilities are there with the states, but taxation related powers are with the union. So states were not happy, so they were asking more autonomy in the context of separate division of power. And then you can mention all those initiatives by the states, different states, like Tamil Nadu in 1969 formed Rajamandar Committee, okay, to look into the center-state relations. Then we can mention Anandpur Sahib resolution 1970s. Then West Bengal resolution of left party, you can mention that. And on that basis, even Government of India appointed Sarkariya Commission to look into the issue 1983. And because of that only, why Sarkariya Commission was formed? Because since 1970s or 60s, there was debate in the country that division should be changed. Their government or the state government should get maximum autonomy. Then Sarkariya Commission said that, look, current division of power is fine, but governors should use their powers, discretionary power, in the interest of nation, federation, all that. Nothing concrete happened. So major issues were this, Article 356, division of power, and in the recent past, you can mention misuse of central agencies, CBI, ED, all those also playing important role in the center-state relations or tensions in the relationship. Okay. Next, how best could they be reconciled? Fine. So you can mention all those tensions. Question is asking, how could they be reconciled? Yes, of course, it is possible. What requires? What requires? Political will and maturity. Political will and maturity. Use of constitutional bodies like interstate councils, Article 263. Use of zonal councils. Yes, we can reconcile those differences. Like GST council. Okay, that is good example of cooperative federation. Okay, so GST council was formed on the basis of this cooperation. So that kind of initiatives you can use. Earlier, of course, planning commission was also major issue of conflict. Then we have Niti Aayog, that is fine. GST council, that is also cooperative federation. You can mention all these bodies. To substantiate your answer, key reconciliation can be possible if we have maturity, we have political will, and we should use these constitutional mechanisms like Article 263 to resolve our issues. Fine. Next question. How does the Supreme Court of India function as the custodian of the Constitution and protector of the rights of the citizens? Next question. How does the Supreme Court of India function as the custodian of the Constitution and protector of the rights of the citizens? Again, you can start with the Supreme Court of India. You can mention Nehru. Judiciary is there to protect the citizens. It is not a mute spectacle. Okay, you should engage in the development of the country. You can start with that. And the Constitution has provided enough, or we can say provisions, to protect the Constitution as well as protect the rights of the citizens. You can mention Article 13, which gives judicial review. Article 32, which provides constitutional remedies, fundamental rights. You can mention Article 142, again very important article. I have shared many articles on the group related to Article 142 and one note also. Please read that. Question might come, okay, discuss or the comment on Article 142, that is complete justice. So this article has been used by the Supreme Court many times to protect the rights as well as the Constitution. In the recent past, there are many verdicts from the Supreme Court on the basis of Article 142, which gives power to Supreme Court to make judgment, to provide complete justice to the people of India. Okay, so on that basis, these are the constitutional backings for the Supreme Court to act as a custodian of the Constitution and the protector of fundamental rights. What is the track record? That should be in your answer. Of course, Supreme Court has given various judgments which saved the Constitution. In that, basic structure doctrine, okay, 1973. In Maneka Gandhi case, Supreme Court came up with due process of law. Due process of law, that is also very, which broadened the power of the Supreme Court, and Article 21 also. Supreme Court introduced PIL. Supreme Court through activism saved the fundamental rights, forced government to form bodies like National Green Tribunal, etc., Vishaka guidelines and all those. So all these examples you can add to substantiate that yes, Supreme Court has played an important role to protect the fundamental rights and to protect the Constitution. No doubt about that. Many times Supreme Court has struck down the amendments also. You can mention 99th Amendment Act, which was considered strike on the separation of power and all that. So through that, the Constitution has been saved by the Supreme Court. You can support the Supreme Court through PM Bakshi, Upendra Bakshi, Professor Upendra Bakshi, Jaya Modi, okay, etc. You can add. or Jagdish, P.N. Bhagwat and all those people while mentioning PIL and all that. So certainly Supreme Court has played important role, but again, you can conclude the Supreme Court requires or the judiciary requires transparency, appointment and etc. On that line, uh, PB Mehta wala argument you can add. Understood? What is important here? You should be aware about constitutional backing and track record of the Supreme Court in the context of protection of human fundamental rights and custodian of the Constitution. Fine. Next question. Examine the significance of the directive principles of state policy in achieving the goal of socio-economic justice. Okay. So this is again constitutional base, DPSP, and questions are there like this question. There are many questions on DPSP and fundamental rights and all that. So I have added this also. Examine the significance of directive principles of state policy in achieving the goal of socio-economic justice. So introduction, you can start with B.R. Ambedkar, for Supreme Court of India, the fundamental rights and DPSPs are soul of the Constitution and etc. Okay, so both are required, DPSPs and fundamental rights. Importance of DPSP in the context of socio-economic policies in achieving the goal of socio-economic justice. Socio-economic justice. Yes, you can quote B.R. Ambedkar. Okay, B.R. Ambedkar, according to Ambedkar, political democracy will not survive without socio-economic democracy. Fundamental rights are provided to establish political democracy, that is fine, or political justice. DPSP's role is to protect socio-economic justice or deliver socio-economic justice. So here you can mention all those provisions in the DPSPs which intend to protect or to promote the social justice, like Article 38, Article 39 B and C related to inequalities. The state will make policies so that there will be minimum inequality in the society or concentration of wealth should not be there. Okay. Then Article 46 related to weaker sections and etc. In the interest of weaker sections, equal pay for equal work. All those points you can add, through which the Constitution provides platform for the social economic justice. And many times the government has brought many policies to give effect to these principles like land reforms in 1950s and 40s in the context of Article 38 and 39. That was the debate actually between the executive and the judiciary. Right to property versus the state's role in the context of Article 39B and C. And the government many times tried to implement policies in the context of 39B and C, concentration of wealth, distribution of wealth and etc. So that is the significance of DPSC, land reforms. Then Government of India has brought various provisions in the context of welfare mechanisms to give positive or affirmative treatment to the weaker sections, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, women, children, etc., etc. So that's why we require DPSP. That is the significance of DPSP. However, post-liberalization world or post-1991, there has been debate in the country. The significance of DPSP has declined because we are following right now capitalism, capitalist economy. But even this, in these circumstances also, in the post-liberalized era also, we have certain provisions in the interest of weaker sections, like Food Security Act. Of course, there is Article or Food Security Act 2013. We have schemes like PM Kisan. We have direct benefit schemes for the weaker sections. Those principles you can add, which signifies, which shows that DPSP provisions are significant to establish social economic justice in the country. Understood? Fine. Next question. So section A we have completed. Section B quickly. Okay. Section B, question number 5A, nature of the fundamental duties enshrined in the Indian Constitution. Last year also there was one question on fundamental duties, nature of fundamental duties. So straightforward, start with fundamental duties, Article 51A, 4A, part 1976, 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, added 10 duties, then one duty was added, 86th, etc., etc. You can start with that. What is the nature? There are certain duties which are civic in nature, which are cultural in nature, environmental in nature, community oriented duties are there. So this is the, we can say, classification of duties. Like we should respect our constitution, our Indian national movement, our national anthem, national flag. That is your civic duty. That is nature of civic duty. There are some community oriented duties, respect the woman. There are certain nationalist duties, like you should be ready to serve the nation whenever called by the nation or the state. Then we have environmental related duties, like we should protect the environment, lakes and etc. So these kind of duties are added in the list of fundamental duties. But these duties are not enforceable, that is voluntary. But the parliament can make laws to give effect to these duties. There is no doubt about that. Already we have some laws also. National Honor Act 1917, etc. 1971. Even Justice Verma Committee, which was established in 1999 to look into the fundamental duties, has the report said that already there are certain provisions in the country which give effect to the fundamental duties. As I said, environmental acts, National Honor Act, and etc. All those already there. So that is the nature of fundamental duties. Fine. And most important part, many people have criticized that there is a provision in the constitution related to duties. That is fine. We can support through Gandhi and etc. Duties are important, so the rights. But our enjoyment of fundamental right is not depend on it. It is not related or it is not linked to the duties. That is also important. These duties are just voluntary. It is not key. If you are practicing duties, then only you are eligible to practice fundamental rights. No, that is not the case. So our fundamental rights are intact. There is no harm. Next, the composition of the Constituent Assembly of India. The composition of Constituent Assembly of India. Here composition means not only factual data. Okay, just must not restrict yourself to the facts. Key members were there and etc. etc. So Constituent Assembly 1946, Cabinet Mission 389 members, then 299 members and etc. That is fact. We all know that. Post independence, this number came to 299. But apart from that, composition means, we can say, substance wise, not factual. So all the voices of Indian societies were represented in the Constituent Assembly. That point you should mention. Many critics were saying that the Constitution Assembly of India was not true representative. Why? First, it was not directly elected by the people, and second, only dominated by the Congress. Congress was dominating party. So those were the labels, criticisms against the CA, that is Constituent Assembly. But if you see the composition of Constituent Assembly, you will get every voice represented in the assembly. Minorities, women, then majority of course, and rural, urban, all the representatives were there. Even though Congress was dominating party, but within Congress also we had different personalities where they were having issues, but they worked together to form this fine document, that is the Constitution of India. So that you should write. Different personalities from different backgrounds. We were having liberals, we were having traditionalists, conservative, we were having socialist, we were having capitalist, C. Rajagopalacharyan, etc. We were having feminist. All those different ideologies, different backgrounds were represented in the Constituent Assembly, and that was the composition of our Constitution. And because of that, our Constitution survived, has survived last 7 decades, because it was based on consensus or fine balancing from different backgrounds. Understood? That should be your approach. Don't restrict yourself to the facts. Key members kitne the and all that. That is not required. Yes, required, but that is not the demand. Next question. Significance of the civil disobedience movement, CDM. Significance of the CDM. Okay, again, Indian national movement. These kind of questions are there already. We all know that. You must prepare significance of the civil disobedience movement. History part, we all know that. Dandi March, 1930, Gandhi gave ultimatum to the Lord Irwin and all that, Governor General, Viceroy, and civil disobedience movement started March, and Gandhi launched that salt satyagraha. What was the significance? Post CDM and during CDM. During CDM, the Indian national movement spread, intensity reached, increased from rural, urban, all strata joined. Workers joined, minorities joined, women joined. That intensity or the influence of Indian national movement increased because of civil disobedience movements. You can give examples from different parts of the country. Salt satyagrahas were launched. You can add from your reference book, history reference book. That is required. You can mention personalities, Sarojini Naidu, C. Rajagopalachari, okay, etc., etc. That is first, during the movement itself. When movement was at its peak, Lord Irwin asked Gandhi for the discussion, and that is one of the most important significance of this CDM. Gandhi or Indian National Congress got call from the Governor General to discuss the issue, and that way it established equality between the British government and the people of India. And that is the point. Gandhi went to second roundtable conference and etc. But what is the significance? Gandhi or Indian National Congress got recognition from the Governor General, and Governor General or British government realized that without the participation of Gandhi or Indian National Congress, the future of India will not be decided. So that is the CDM's importance or significance. That point you should mention. Understood? बाकी सब facts है, बाकी सब history है. You can mention that in your answer. Okay, fine. Next question. Assess the effectiveness of National Human Rights Commission in redressing grievances pertaining to human rights violation in India. Now, question is asking, assess the effectiveness of the NHRC in redressing grievances pertaining to human rights violation in India. Okay, introduction, you can directly start with NHRC, National Human Rights Commission, established in 1993, statutory body, and etc. etc. That is required, no issues, you can mention that. What is the power? Briefly, you can mention powers, role of NHRC. Power has civil courts. You can NHRC can ask for any reports. It can visit prisons and etc. Suo motu actions. That one paragraph, second paragraph you can write. What is the effectiveness? Effectiveness is, we can say, mixed. We have mixed analysis of this NHRC. There are some positives, of course, positives are there. It spread awareness about human rights violation, research, visiting camps, visiting prisons, and etc. So it has taken suo motu actions also in certain cases. That is positives. But negatives are very, we can say, concrete. Even H.L. Dattu, former chairperson of this NHRC and Justice of India, he commented, it is toothless tiger, it has no power because of dependency on the government. It has no mechanism of enforcement. Because of that, it is not working properly. Grievances are not addressed properly. Recommendations are not compulsory. Administration or government's role very complex. Many times government is the body or the party where government NHSRC has to work. So because of that, NHRC has limited success. And there are certain structural issues also. Key time gap is there, time limit is there. The case should be 1 year old, not more than that. It has limited powers in the context of security forces. Security forces. So because of that, NHRC has, we can say, failed to protect the human rights. An overlapping issue. There are various bodies, constitutional bodies and statutory bodies. We have National Commission for Minorities, we have National Commission for Women, we have National Commission for SCs, we have National Commission for STs. So all these separate bodies are there, and we have this statutory body, National Human Rights Commissions. So ये statutory वाले बोलेंगे ये constitutional वाले का काम है, ये constitutional वाले बोलेंगे इनका काम है. ये जो चल रहा है उसकी वजह से भी National Human Rights Commission has not worked properly. Overlapping of the mandates. So you can add that point also. What is required? More is to the National Human Rights Commission, more powers. You can mention constitutional status and all that, more resources, more concrete actions from the government on the recommendation of the National Commission for Human Rights. You can add that. Okay. Next question. Examine the Parliament's powers to amend the Constitution of India. Examine the Parliament's powers to amend the Constitution of India. The Constitution of India has given constituent power to the Parliament of India. Only Parliament of India can amend the Constitution. That we know. Article 368 gives powers, procedure and power to amend the Constitution of India by repealing, by adding, or through variation. Through this way, Parliament can amend the Constitution of India. And we have 106 Constitution Amendment Acts till date. Last was 106th Women Reservation. What is the background? Article 368 provided procedure originally to amend the Constitution. And Constitution has provisions related to fundamental rights and DPSPs. Now debate started ki what kind of power is there, what kind of procedure is there in the context of amendment of the Constitution. Article 360 has provided special majorities, first category, second category, that we all know that. Special majority, total members, 50% of total members, 2/3 present and voting, plus half the state legislature, second category. That is, we know that. But this context, tussle between DPSP, fundamental rights led to the tussle between executive and judiciary. Initially, judiciary declared that the Parliament can amend any part of the Constitution to give effect to the DPSP. But in 1967, in Golaknath case, it changed its decision, earlier decision, and said that no, Parliament cannot amend the fundamental rights even to give effect to the DPSP. Then government reacted through 24th and 25th Constitutional Amendment Act and said that the government or the Parliament can amend any part of the Constitution, no one can challenge that. And then come 1973 Keshwananda Bharati case, ki no, you cannot change basic structure of the Constitution. You are not sovereign like that of UK. UK's Parliament is complete sovereign, it can change any part of the statute or the convention, etc. No written constitution, but Parliament of UK can do anything. That kind of power is not with you. Supreme Court explicitly told to the Parliament of India through basic structure doctrine. Then once again government reacted through 38, 39, 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. Once again government tried to take maximum power. But once again, in Mindrawa Mill case and all those judgments, Supreme Court once again established that look, you have limited powers to amend the Constitution of India. You have not exclusive, not extreme powers to amend the Constitution. And what are the limitations? First, written Constitution, written nature of the Constitution. Then we have fundamental rights. We have federal structure, that is division of power. We have active judiciary, judicial review is provided. So all these limitations are there on the parliament to amend the Constitution. So we have limited, we can say, not complete absolute power to the parliament to amend the Constitution of India. Understood? You can mention that. Examine the parliament's powers to amend the Constitution of India. All these provisions you can mention in your answer. Next question. What are the political philosophies enshrined in the Indian Constitution? How far are they mutually reconcilable? Give reasons for your arguments. Question is asking, what are the political philosophies enshrined in the Indian Constitution? Okay, this is again very open-ended topic. You can stretch maximum to bring political philosophies in the Constitution. Okay, so Constitution of India was formed by the CA, and CA was represented by different personalities. As I said in the earlier answer, we were having liberals, we were having socialist, Marxist, traditionalist or conservatives, were having capitalists also, and we were having feminists also, and we were having republicans also. So all these political philosophies are enshrined in the Constitution of India through different articles, different provisions. If you see the provisions of fundamental rights, so liberal attitude gets reflected, so that liberal perspective is there. Republicanism is there through various provisions. India is a democracy and we are republic also. So both these principles are there in the, we can say, preamble and subsequent parts of the Constitution. We have socialist provisions in articles 38, 39, 46, that is DPSP. So that political philosophy is also reflected in the Constitution. We have traditionalist, or we can say conservatives, in the Constitution. That is Article 25, 28, that is liberal also, as well as conservative also. Article 29, Article 30, cultural rights, all etc. Then we have feminist also. I mean, woman, in the context of giving justice to women, we have certain provisions like Article 15.3, 4, Article 15, 16, 4, where we have provided reservations in the context of weaker sections. Right now we have a reservation for women in the context of 73rd and 74th, and right now 106th. So all these political philosophies are represented directly, indirectly in the Constitution of India, that you can make. But next part is important. How far are they mutually reconcilable? Give reasons for your arguments. Of course, there were debate, there were issues while framing the Constitution. Which part should come first? Whether socialism, capitalism, liberalism. So we've made some concrete balance, concrete adjustments in the Constitution so that reconciliation can happen. What was that? We added different parts in the Constitution and gave status, different status to the provisions. Like we have fundamental rights, which are liberal in notion, liberalism, political rights and etc. And these are enforceable. And we have socialist provisions also, and these are in the DPSP, these are non-enforceable. But both are important, as said by the Supreme Court in Mindrawa Mills case, 1970s, late 80. So according to Supreme Court, both are important, DPSPs and fundamental rights. So reconciliation can possible, it is there, already there. Of course, there were certain issues, tussles, that all we know from 1951 onwards. The tussle between fundamental rights and DPSP already we have covered. But that is we manage. that you can mention in the answer. We have democracy, we have republic, then we have various cultural rights like Article 29, 30, which provided safeguards for the minorities. We have established individual rights also, and we have provided community rights also. So even you can mention communitarians view. Communitarians view came very late in political science in 1980s, but our constitution already had that provision, communitarians. What is Article 2930? What is this? Communitarianism. So already we have that. Okay. So we have some individual rights in the context of religion, Article 25, but we have group rights also, Article 26, 27, and Article 29 and 30 also. That means already we have that communitarianism in our constitution. That point you can add in your answer. Okay. And it has served the purpose also. Okay, India is a secular country, and various parts of the constitution already established India as a secular country. We merely added one word in the preamble in 1976 through 46, 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, but which was not required at all, but it is also settled now. Supreme Court time and again said that. The Supreme Court in 1994 in SR Bommai case already said that secularism is a basic structure of the constitution. No one can change that right now, unless we have second constituent assembly. Second question, next question. To what extent has 73rd and 74th amendments of the Indian Constitution enhanced women's empowerment? Very plain. Many times this question has been asked. 73rd and 74th. Okay, both the provisions. You can start with 1992 Act, which came into effect in 1993, which gave reservations 1/3, 33% reservation to the women in local bodies at both the levels, members as well as chairperson level. We have added more than 3 million representatives from the women in 73rd and 74th. That you can add. You can mention reports, various reports on the 73rd and 74th, like Manishankar Iyer Committee Report 2012, all that. You can mention observation of Sudha Pai on this working of 73rd and 74th and women's representation, etc. We have mixed response also as far as 73rd empowerment. In some areas we have good positive points, but weaknesses are also there, as said by the Manishankar Iyer Committee on Panchayati Raj 2012. So Pati Panchayat and etc. Sudha Pai you can mention. Fine, that is very plain. Already we have discussed many times. Next question. Make an assessment of the role of Election Commission of India in the conduct of free and fair elections. Okay, very important and very debatable topic right now in our country. Make an assessment of the role of Election Commission of India in the conduct of free and fair elections. Okay, so we have constitutional body, Article 324, that is Election Commission of India, to conduct elections, free and fair elections for the post of president, vice president, parliament, two houses of parliaments, and state legislature. That is the constitutional mandate given to the constitution, by the constitution, to the Election Commission of India. You can start with that Article 324, and you can mention Hillary Clinton's observation on Indian elections, S.Y. Qureshi's observation on Election Commission or elections in India. India is known for various miracles like Taj Mahal or Gandhi and elections, which is commendable. We have 18th Lok Sabha elections, which successfully conducted by the Election Commission of India. Assessment. Now, of course, assessment positives and negatives. Okay, in positives, certainly you can give credit to the Election Commission of India for the successful conduct of elections for state legislatures, Lok Sabha and etc. In number of state legislatures, Lok Sabha, as I said, that is fine. No one can doubt that. Not only that, creating electoral rolls, voter list, recognizing political parties, giving them symbols, and in the recent past, in the context of settling disputes between the political parties and framing model code of conduct and all that. So Election Commission has played very commendable job. As I mentioned, S.Y. Qureshi, you can mention S.Y. Qureshi was former Election Commissioner of India. That is fine. But negatives are also there. I mean, in the sense, Key appointment, context of appointment, very political issue. That's why Supreme Court in 2023 said that, look, the election commissioner should be appointed by the neutral body, impartial body. So Supreme Court asked the government to form a body in which Chief Justice of India will be there, Prime Minister will be there, and leader of opposition will be there. But government came up with different law in 2023 and it added other union minister rather than Chief Justice of India. So even today also we have executive appointed election commissioners. So we have right now appointment committee which consists of Honorable Prime Minister, any union minister appointed by the Prime Minister and leader of opposition in Lok Sabha. Now this Lok Sabha, leader of opposition of Lok Sabha has no meaning because ultimately it is government which is going to appoint the election commissioner. And what is important here for our discussion, it creates doubts in the minds of people for opposition. Okay? If you are appointing the election commissioners, the credibility or transparency or we can say impartiality of the commission come into question. So that appointment, because of that, election commission has been criticized. It is not fault of election commission, it is fault of the structure. That is fine, no issue. Second, from the election commission also, there are certain issues. Many times election commission fails to criticize or fails to take actions on the ruling party's behavior during model code of conduct and etc. Even today, right now, there is issue in Bihar that is also political, but of course, election commission must not think in that way. Look, politics, it has its own place in the polity. Opposition will play the politics, ruling party also play the politics. Fair enough, no doubt. But election commission is a constitutional body. Election commission must behave as a constitutional body. It is not a tool, instrument of the ruling party. It is job of the election commission to answer the opposition's concern, answer the people's concern, whatever it may be, come clean, whatever it may be. So in that way you can address the issues. No, not a single system in the world which is perfect 100%. And election commission has also some limitations or some doubts, no doubt about that. But election commission must address that. So we need some structural and behavioral changes in the context of election commission or elections. And that's why it is said that election reforms are the mother of all reforms in the country, because the journey starts from that only, corruption and all that. So you can mention that. So this is make an assessment of role of Election Commission of India in the conduct of free and fair elections. Of course, we have some credible institutions in that election commission is fine, but again we need to reform that also. Okay, no complacency, no place for complacent attitude. Next question is 7A. The role of Indian Prime Ministers in the federal system was always controversial. Okay, this is comment. This is statement. Do you agree with this statement? Give reasons for your answer with apt examples. Now we have to understand, we have to discuss the federal structure in the context of Prime Minister and the states. The role of Indian Prime Ministers in the federal system was always controversial. Always, the word always is there, so directly you can say no. Okay, that is not the issue. As I said, when Congress was dominant, when Prime Minister Nehru was there was no issue in the center-state relations, barring some exceptions. As I said, even Nehru also imposed president rule in Kerala in 1959. That was there, no doubt about that. So, role of Prime Minister, you can address this question through different phases. During the time of Nehru, इतना कोई controversy नहीं था. Second, Indira Gandhi ji, so that is controversial. During time of Morarji Desai, that was also controversial. During once again Rajiv Gandhi, fair, no issue, इतना कोई issue नहीं था. During the time of coalitions, there were some issues, and during the time of this NDA 2 or Prime Minister Modi's time, So you can address this question in this way also, or you can mention one party dominant system, coalition era, and once again one party dominant system. In that way also you can address this question. So as I said, during the time of Nehru, there were good relations in the context of prime ministers and chief ministers. Nehru enjoyed legitimacy, he was popular, he was democrat, so he understood everything about the polity, democracy, and etc. So major issues were not there. Article 356 was rarely used, as I said. But after that, once Congress system got declined in 1966-67, issues started, and prime ministers and chief minister or the states were having issues. As I said, many state governments in Tamil Nadu, in Punjab, in West Bengal, they started asking more autonomy to the states through the constitutional amendments. So that happened because of role of prime minister or executive, union executive in the context of states. Many times Indira Gandhi imposed Article 356. Many state governments were annexed, many state governments were removed, and that also during time of Morarji Desai also. During Rajiv Gandhi's time, that was fair, itna koi issue nahi tha in the federal structure or in the context of controversy. But during coalitions also, many times Article 356 was used without taking due procedure, and many times Supreme Court also observed that. During this time, post 2014, Prime Minister Modi, he came up with that plan, rhetoric, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, good governance, Team India, and etc. But even today also, there are opposition ruled parties, they are having some concerns vis-a-vis Prime Minister. That is fair, we can make political analysis. So you can add scholars like P.B. Mehta, Suhas Parshikar, okay. So you can add their commentaries if you want. There is no issue. Fair political analysis you can write, no problem. So it is not correct to say that role of prime minister in the federal structure always controversial. Okay, we have some good examples and we have some confrontationist attitudes from the prime ministerial office. That is fair. But there is politics you can mention. Okay, understood? Fine. The next question, 7B, critically examine the impact of the land reforms. Next question, critically examine the impact of the land reforms on the agrarian transformation. Critically examine the impact of land reforms in the agrarian transformation. First, write about land reforms. Okay, Indian government brought many land reforms initiatives post independence to give effect to the vision of Gandhi, BPSP, social justice, etc., etc. in the introduction. So three main initiatives were taken: land reforms, okay, abolition of jamindari, tenancy reforms, and land ceilings. And consolidation of land was also there. But these three were most important. Okay, so you can address this question by giving micro-analysis of that land reforms. Land reforms had these three main components: abolition of jamindari, tenancy reforms, and land ceiling. Now, this reform was good. I mean, it was one of the most successful reforms, abolition of jamindari. That is fine. So in many states, this was done, no issues. West Bengal, Kerala, across the country. You can mention Rudolph and Rudolph here to give that point. And that's why we can say positives as far as land reforms are concerned. This aspect was good. It was fairly implemented. You can quote Rudolph and Rudolph. Okay, scholars. Tenancy reforms, it was, mixed. Results were mixed. According to Atul Kohli and P.S. Appu, many initiatives taken during the land reforms initiatives were failed. In that, tenancy and land ceilings were the major components. Atul Kohli and P.S. Appu, they made analysis of land reforms. According to them, land reforms failed, especially tenancy reforms and land ceiling initiatives, because of structural and we can say behavioral issues in the land reforms. Why? Because many loopholes were there, political will was not there, many state governments were having some issues, controlled by the capitalists, controlled by the bourgeois class, controlled by the landlords. So they made very soft laws, and they use those loopholes, and because of this land ceiling and tenancy reforms failed. And that's why land reforms have positives as well as negative effects on agrarian transformation. Positive, of course some positives are there. Land, after the land reforms we had green revolution, and because of that we had food security and etc. That positive aspect you can mention. According to Rudolph and Rudolph, because of this green revolution, the rise of OBC was there. OBC factor became prominent. Post green revolution, credit goes to these reforms. Zamindari, because middle classes became strong, middle class caste took the advantage of these initiatives and became the strong force in the Indian politics. This bullock capitalist Rudolph and Rudolph world. But negatives were there. Still, this is unfinished business. Land reforms is still unfinished business, because as I said, many reforms were half-hearted, political will was not there, and loopholes were there. Land records were not maintained. Even today also land records are not properly maintained, and that's why people are arguing that we need land reform 2.0. We need land reform 2.0. Okay, Mr. Gulati, okay, in the Indian Express में जो लिखते अशोक गुलाटी, I think गुलाटी, उनका ये कहना है कि we need land reforms 2.0, because what you right now we are facing agrarian crisis, farmer suicides, agriculture is in distress, because we fail to deliver land reforms. So we require once again land reforms 2.0 kind of situation. So that point you can mention. Understood? Okay, fine. That is land reforms. Next, in what ways do civil liberties and human rights movements influence the working of Indian democracy? Give your answer with suitable examples. In what ways do civil liberties and human rights movements influence the working of Indian democracy? Okay, civil liberty movements, we have various social movements, Dalit movements, women movements, civil liberty, environmental movements. Civil liberties, we started late. I mean, post independence we had constitution, so people thought that look, right now people are there, indigenous people, they will deliver freedom of speech and etc. and all that. But post emergency, post 25th of June 1975, people realized the importance of civil liberties and freedom of speech, free press and etc. So people started asking questions to the state, to the government, and we had different movements to bring transparency and to minimize the corruption in the country. So we had movements for the right to information. Okay, right to information. Okay, you can mention there Aruna Rai, Anna Hazare ji, and finally we had that bill 2005 Right to Information Act. Then we had various civil liberties movement for the freedom of speech and expression, even right to privacy. It is part of again liberty. Okay, so in the context of authoritarian state, or we can say surveillance state. Okay, so we had that Aadhaar verdict also. So all these civil liberties movement played important role to strengthen democracy in our country. There is no doubt. You can give examples of these in reforms and Supreme Court observations. As far as the second part of the question or second movement, that is human rights movement. So that is also very late in 1970s. In the context of atrocities committed by the bureaucrats or the police officers in prisons and etc., So issue of civil liberties and human rights became prominent, and we have some human rights activists also. But there are certain views on these particular human rights. According to Upendra Bakshi, professor, human rights movements are nothing but, we can say, corporate houses. They are run by the corporate houses, or their prime motive is to profit and etc. They are not concerned about human rights and all that. Okay, so he is not having good observation about human rights. Many times human rights protests were organized in the context of vested interest and etc. Especially in the context of tribal movements and all that, to stop the work of dams and etc. So that element is there, and that's why we can say ki even government of India also took various initiatives like regulating funding of human rights uh, NGOs like Amnesty International or Greenpeace and etc. So we have some mixed response as far as the human rights movements are concerned. But of course, they have played important role. We have national human rights commissions, various other bodies, and credit goes to these movements. So you can mention those points. Critical, both positive as well as negative of these civil liberties and human rights movements. You can add some case studies. Okay, fine. Then what are the important determinants of electoral behavior in India? Critically discuss the role of caste as a determinant of voting behavior. What are the important determinants of electoral behavior in India? Critically discuss the role of caste as a determinant of voting behavior. Okay, first we have to mention electoral behavior. Okay, throughout the last 7 decades, Indian Constitution provided universal adult franchise under Article 326, and in that way we introduce one go liberal democracy in our country, one vote, one principle, one person, one vote, one values principle, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. And we had various elections, or many elections, state level as well as at the union level. And in that electoral behavior, people vote on different backgrounds. This is again miracle. Many times Western media declare that Indian democracy is going to fail because masses are ignorant, voters are ignorant, they don't understand. But people of India proved them wrong. We are having mature voters, and many times we have elected governments and removed the governments, and that is majority of our Indian voters. But what are the factors or determinants? Of course, identity politics. Identity politics is the prime factor in the elections. You can mention a number of scholars to quote that: Rajni Kothari, Rudolph and Rudolph, Yogendra Yadav, Ashutosh Varshney. All these people, or Christophe Jeffrolet, all these people, if you read, definitely they will say that identity politics played important role in the voters or electoral behavior. M.N. Srinivasan, you can add M.N. Srinivasan. People vote for their caste, that is open secret, or identity plus identity politics. So identity politics was the main issue or the determinant in the Indian politics or electoral behavior. Then local issues. Second determinant, local issues at the local level, especially during the state legislature's time. And national issues also, sometimes national issues, based on national issues also people vote, like Pulwama and etc. Local issues during the state legislature, and that is the majority of Indian voters. If you see the Odisha, okay, same voter voted BJD to power at the state in 2019 and BJP in the Lok Sabha. Same voter, 2019. So at the local level, that is MLA level, people vote on the basis of local issues. At the national level, Lok Sabha level, people vote on the basis of national issues. Same voter vote, different parameters, determinants. So you can mention that. Third, fourth, according to Yogendra Yadav, recently we have observed identity plus politics. That is, people are still focusing on identities, caste, religion, all that. But more than that, we require plus, that is governance. That is governance. You can give examples of TDP coming to power in Andhra Pradesh, 2010, Nitish Kumar coming to power in Bihar on the basis of development, Prime Minister Modi coming to power in 2014, not on Hindutva, but development, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, 15 lakh, etc. Okay, so that is identity plus politics. We require identity, more than that, governance, development. So these are the different determinants of votings in the elections. But still, identity holds the card. Caste, religion, both are supreme right now also. Of course, circumstances are different. So in many places right now, caste is again relevant. Even Christophe Jeffrolet has recently, in last elections also, caste has played an important role in many parts of the country at the national level as well as the local level. You can give example of Uttar Pradesh, Samajwadi Party got many seats in the Lok Sabha, last Lok Sabha. Congress got decent seats. In Uttar Pradesh, in Bihar, caste-based political parties performed well in last general elections. In Maharashtra also, caste-based arithmetics played important role to bring Mahavikas Agadi in Lok Sabha, though of course in state legislature they perform differently. But caste still holds the card along with religion. That is your conclusion. Of course, some identity plus, that is governance. Yogendra Yadav. So scholars, you can mention Rajni Kothari, secularization of caste, Rudolph Bullock, capitalist, Yogendra Yadav, upsurge, democratics, Delhi's OBCs and etc. Ashutosh Varshney and Christophe Jeffrolet. All these people you can add in your answer. Fine. Okay, next question. Examine the case for formation of small states in India. Next question. Examine the case for formation of small states in India. 15 marks. Okay. Right now we have 28 states and we have territory like 32 lakh square kilometer. Population is around 1.5 billion. So roughly we can say 3 crore population in each state on an average. That is huge number. So why we require small states? So requirement of small states. This is again debatable issue. We have pro small state people like Advani ji or BJP at that time. Even Dr. Ambedkar also supported this small state. At least we require 100 states considering the size of India and population. If you see the United States of America, United States has 50 states, population is around 40 crore. Of course, territory is big. But population wise, we have 150 crore population and we have 28 states. So from the administrative point of view, we require small states. That is fair. You can quote B.R. Ambedkar, Advani, etc. Even Advani or BJP at that time formed 3 new states around 2000, Uttarakhand, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh. But apart from that, viability is also important. Whether that small state going to function properly or not, that is also important to understand. So take the example of Goa. Okay, many times Goa assembly creates hung assembly. So political stability becomes issue in small states. That is first issue. Second, economic sustainability. The resources, tax resources, natural resources should be ample enough. It should not like you are just depending on natural resources. Take the example of Chhattisgarh. Okay, apart from coal, iron, Chhattisgarh has to diversify its pool, tax pool. Otherwise, issue of sustainability will be there. So, while forming small states, administration is fine, no issue. But sustainability, survivability should also be taken into consideration. That point you have to mention. Okay, you can mention Uttar Pradesh situation, 4 states are required. Okay, even Mayawati ji did that, but could not succeed. So you can mention all those kind of points in your analysis, support and in opposition. Both the points you have to write in your answer. Okay, examine the case for formation of small states in India. Both the cases you have to describe. So yes, of course you can have small state, but different criteria, the population, economy, and territory. All those issues you can mention, and if you have, you can create new states. No one can stop that. Fine, no issue. Backwardness, Telangana we created. That point you can add. Last question: account for the emergence of regional political parties in India. Again, very simple question. Account. We have to give different reasons for the emergence of regional parties in the country. Again, you can start with political parties or regional parties. Okay. So from 1951 onwards till 1967, we had one party dominance. One party dominance. You can mention Congress system, Rajni Kothari ji, politics in India. Rajni Kothari. After that, in 1967, many political regional parties became prominent, and we have to give reasons. We are asked to give reasons. Why? First, Congress system collapsed. Why? Because death of Nehru, 2 wars in between, 1962 war, 1965 war. Third, local sentiments became prominent. Example, Hindi, issue of Hindi, national language, 1965 protest, rise of Tamil party, DMK, Dravid Munnetra Kazhagam, it came to power in 1967. First non-Congress party came to power on its own with complete majority. And after that, many regional parties came to power. That is third. Fourth, state reorganizations took place based on language. Son of soil played the important role, and many regional parties came to in picture, like Shiv Sena in 1966 in Maharashtra, Assam Gan Parishad in 1985 in Assam, and in many other countries, local political parties on local issues, sentiments like TDP, Telugu Desam Party in 1984, Telugu Pride. Then fourth or fifth, disintegration of Samajwadi family, Samaj Janata Party or Samajwadi Party, and many Samajwadi factions emerged. In Karnataka, we have Janata Dal, secular. In Uttar Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, we have Samajwadi Party. In Bihar, we have Rashtriya Janata Dal. Then Janata Dal United, JDU. All these Samajwadis got disintegrated post 1990s, and because of national level or at local level, many regional parties came into existence. So there are different reasons for the rise of local parties. Rudolf and Rudolf, again same, he, because of OBC factor, became prominent. OBCs or other backward class based parties also became prominent. You can give example of Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, and many parts of the country. So all these reasons played important role in the rise of national party or local parties or regional parties at local level. Decline of Congress and all that you can add. So this is all about paper 1B, all the questions we have discussed. If you have any kind of issues, you can message me, we'll discuss individually. Thank you for joining. We'll stop here. Take care.